Alrighty, so how today's gonna go is that basically we were going to do it face to face. So sorry that we're not able to do that just because of the number of people who submitted this time. But I mean, a good news is that because of the number of people who submitted this time, you guys do get an extended period of presentation and comments by our panelist. So we would put your team name in a wheel, like a lucky draw, and that would determine who is presenting first. And afterwards, we'll get at least either Paul or Simon to comment on your panel, and me and David would chip in as well. So with regards to that, Paul, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure, happy to. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Hockman, and I am an academic at the University of New South Wales. I teach there in the architecture school, mainly in the area of architectural history. And on top of that, I'm the current discipline director of the architecture program. So my main job is to ensure that the courses are running smoothly and they're well resourced and so forth. So I'm very delighted to have been invited to participate in this competition and to be part of the afternoon. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. Very good to have you. And Simon, do you want to give yourself a little quick intro?
I guess. Hi, everyone. I'm Simon Weir. I'm an academic at the University of Sydney, and I specialize in architectural design and architectural design theory. And in addition to that, I'm also the Associate Dean of Student Life at the moment, which is a nice job, trying to make student life be more alive now that we're trying to work out how to come back from COVID.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Is it also possible at the beginning here to get a quick restatement of the brief that we're looking at? Is that coming up anyway?
That's coming up.
That's coming up anyway. All right. Thank you.
That is coming up. Alrighty, let's progress. Should we, on that note, should we do a quick brief of that, the brief that we have for everyone?
Yes, sir. Let's do that. So I'll just share my screen on the website. Ooh, got some problems here.
Yep.
You guys can see my screen, right? Yep. Okay. So essentially what we kind of established from the briefing of this competition, we wanted to essentially create a self-sustaining housing or shelter suitable for 10 people on Mars. We've allowed you guys to get quite flexible with the narrative in regards to human situations and activities and how you do want to address the brief and habitation on Mars. However, some non-negotiables were that the program must be no larger than 1,000 square meters floor mass and can extend to up to 100 meters high. It can be made of any materiality and construction you deem appropriate for Mars's climate and context with extra CUDA points for research. And we really wanted you guys to get quite creative with the human situation on Mars. So suspending your belief on realism, getting creative. And because Mars has quite a different context to the planet Earth, quite different daylighting, quite different gravity, and quite a different atmosphere, we decided to kind of suspend that belief further by utilizing this kind of abstract, very conceptual, very fictional gravity machine. So you can interact with two different planes, whether that's the floor, the ceiling, the floor and the wall, and they basically interact in a way to maximize the available space and create some very interesting opportunities for habitation. Obviously, suspending your belief on kind of what's suitable for kind of human habitation. So doing activities on the ceiling and your blood's not going to rush to your head and you're not going to pass out. So kind of on the perspective that those things will be possible. So some examples that we kind of gave from the brief was kind of some things from popular culture. So running on wars, kind of just some architectural theory. So Leibniz Woods, some kind of very abstract kind of architecture that is not kind of real, but kind of created in an abstract manner, and some kind of real proposals by some people like Bloch, Ingalls on Mars, and how they've kind of thought of human situations and things like how you go to the toilet, how you go to sleep on Mars, and how things like that become managed in a different way to the planet Earth. And that's about it. I think we got everyone to present it on any one panel. And in terms of how we're going to be looking at your projects, we're going to be looking at it under the lens of planning, tectonics, and thematics. So in terms of planning, that's not just how things are spatially organized in your scheme in terms of form, space, and order, but also how you've kind of organized your sequence of human activities. So what things are next to each other, how it works. That works together with tectonics, so the engineering perspective of tectonic culture, but also how you mediate the inside and exterior experiences. So looking at architecture as the medium and how you use the interior and exterior to create an experience and habitation, and also thematics. So thematics relates directly to the brief and the narrative that you've kind of created for your architecture. And that thematic directly relates to your planning and your tectonics and how that all comes together to create architecture. So yeah, that is essentially it. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yep. Okay. And basically that's the brief, and we would get the panelists to comment after your presentation. Afterwards, we would go into a breakout room. So me, David, Nathan, Simon, and Paul, to decide on the winners. So we kind of did have a little bit of a change for the final prizes, just because the people who entered. So we would have obviously the winner, that's unchanged, runner up. We got People's Choice, and in regards to, I think, Exec's Choice, that was the one that we were missing. Correct me if I'm wrong. We changed that to participation. So there are four prizes to be handed out today. Alrighty, if everything is clear, then I will pull up the lucky draw and we can get started. Sounds good? All right. Can we see this?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, let's go. All right, we got Destiny coming up first. Yeah, sound effects.
So that is Elise.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
You ready to present?
Yeah, okay.
Oh
do
wait,
you
should
want
we
me
do the lucky draw first, like for everyone first, and then we'll get everyone to be ready?
I think we can do it as we progress. Just so you don't know who's
Be
going to be next.
prepared. The
Yeah.
three teams. It could be you next. All right, go ahead, Elise.
do you want me to share my screen or?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll set a 15-minute timer when you're ready. And at the end of those 15 minutes, you don't have to spend the entire 15 minutes, but I'll stop you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So can everyone see? Yeah. Okay, so this is my project. It's called Destiny, and I'll just read the description. Oh wait, I'll just give you a panel preview. So yeah. So over the years, NASA has sent 5 rovers to Mars. So these rovers are Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance. So each rover marks pinnacle points in human evolution and technological progression. However, in the year 2157, a fundamental shift has transpired in the relationship between robotics and human behavior, in which humans have become metaphorical robots as their functions and actions are no longer required, as they are extended or replaced by robots. The rover Destiny is an extension of the anthropomorphizing of Mars rovers, in which scientists and the public assigned human-like qualities to make the journey on Mars more real. Destiny is nevertheless an awakening of the human spirit in the rover's previously automated and underdeveloped social interactions, and subsequently an architectural rendition of the human-robot relationships depicted in the movie WALL-E. Furthermore, Destiny includes technological features from its previous rover forms to capture its technological progression, in which it now requires 10 humans to operate each of its bodily functions. This exposes humanity's dependency on robots and challenges dual oppositions that society takes for granted. The purpose of Destiny is to open questions of what it means to be human and construct a grim dystopian perspective of power and relation. Therefore, the seductive appeal of Mars is overshadowed by chilling questions of the consequences of increasing human-robot interaction, and Project Destiny serves as a reminder of the not-so-black and white future that lies ahead once human-to-object boundaries are broken to reach Mars. So I'll explain the panel a bit. So this is what the rover looks like. And I don't know if you've watched the movie WALL-E, but it kind of looks like WALL-E, if you can see it. And so I don't really know anything about technology, so I decided to make the rover out of parts from the previous rovers. So it's kind of symbolic of the technological progression humans have evolved as well. And so you can see on the side, this is like how you can organize them to create neighborhoods. And so in terms of that dystopian perspective, there's kind of like a chilling atmosphere when you look at it because of the way it's been organized. And so the rover's powered by solar and nuclear energy. It's based on this article that was saying that if you're going to have a habitat on Mars, it's better to have both options available, just because, you might be in a hole or something and, you can't have any sun. So, yeah. And then, so here, this is how the people and the robot was organized. So there are 10 people that are needed to operate the rover, and each person has a role to play, and they represent bodily functions of the rover. So for example, the eyes, you need one human to monitor the environment. The brain and the head, you need 2 people. You need one person to monitor the structural integrity, and 2 for the mouth and ear. And one person to drive the rover and one person to control the arms. And then here we've got how the place was organized. So the head, this is the head here, which is the control room. And then you've got, kitchen, living room, lab. At the back is the engine and the gravity machine room. And we have the meeting area in the middle. And then we've got 4 bedrooms. So, yeah. And I had a second panel as well. I'll just share that as well. So on this panel, so this is like initiating the project itself. So you can see here with this is how the rovers are going to be delivered. So they're going to be delivered by space cranes. And that's actually how the previous current rovers were actually delivered onto Mars. So they use the sky crane. And so this panel I mean, it's kind of cute because you've got, you know, two rovers falling in love and rovers camping. This here is how rovers actually charge. So here you can see them charging themselves with the plutonium fuel. And they have to charge every 2 human years. And then here you've actually got a rover getting food. So this is like a food stand. And then the food stand drops the food into a chute. And then that chute leads to the dining table. So yeah, that's what you've got here. And then this one here is kind of like it's like a car wash. So yeah, that's how the rovers clean. So yeah. But this panel was mainly used to establish the dystopian reality. And it's kind of a good summary of what WALL-E is. So WALL-E is actually a dystopian film in disguise as a kids film. And so it depicts a very specific type of relationship between robots and humans. And one thing you'll notice is that these robots are displaying human interactions, but you actually don't see any humans in this panel. And yeah. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
I'll go to our panelists first.
Yeah.
Paul and Simon, does anyone want to comment?
I think this is it's a really fun and fascinating start to this project. We're trying to think about, you know, how to live on Mars, the idea of like being like a camper van and just driving around continuously. I think that alone is a really compelling beginning, because I think no matter where you picked on Mars, you'd kind of just be overwhelmingly curious about everywhere else, you know. So I'd automatically start thinking about journeys to and from and all this kind of stuff. And so this is a really nice solution. I'm a bit perplexed by the scale of the objects, because I know you've gone to some trouble to make sure people aren't in the exterior perspective, so that they start to take on their own kind of scale, you know. But yeah, I'm a bit lost with that, particularly when I look at the dining table delivery. I think they must be kind of huge in a way. But something I was curious about, which I was a bit disappointed that you didn't point it out somewhere, was how this is using this anti-gravity machine, you know, so people can be sleeping on the ceiling and those kind of things. Is there any anti-gravity action in your buggies?
No, not gonna lie, I realized that I didn't incorporate that, so I kind of just put it in. But
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, one thing that strikes me about this scheme is the conception of the vehicle as a pretty much autonomous machine. It doesn't seem to interact with the environment or the surface of Mars. It doesn't have it doesn't harvest anything. It doesn't attach itself, it seems, to the surface. It's like, as Simon says, it could be a sort of a futuristic camper van, and it's designed for travel and for mobility rather than settlement and something that you live in connection to a place. So that's interesting, you know, this idea of autonomy and an autonomous machine or vehicle. But I'm just wondering why Mars itself doesn't play a greater role. Why is it that Mars is almost invisible here as a place and environment? It's outlined, it's a little sketch down the bottom there, but it doesn't seem as though Mars as a location is that important.
Yeah, no, yeah. So because my project was a bit more conceptual, so I was trying to apply it to kind of any type of space exploration, not just necessarily Mars. yeah, because the project was about Mars, it wasn't. So yeah, I don't know, like it was a really conceptual project. So the way I was approaching it was saying that this is what could happen in any type of planet that we decide to explore.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got a question for you, Lisa, if I may. You talk about in your preamble there the potential to reawaken a sense of human spirit and humanity. Could you say more about that, you know, in terms of how this type of living machine would enable that, or what that would even consist of in the year 2057?
Oh, are you talking about the description at the beginning?
Yeah, in the description
Okay.
at the beginning.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just get it up. So was it?
Yeah,
just
I can even point it out. You said it's about reawakening the human spirit. Destiny is nevertheless a reawakening of the human spirit in the rovers. So that really struck me, you know, as something that you know, is of interest, and I'm wondering what you are referring to there.
Okay, so from the previous rovers, so these ones here, people would, once they would send them onto Mars, people would kind of develop they would personify them and humanize them in a way, in an approach to make them feel closer. So a lot of them, you know, were like calling them cute, or like, you know, when they died, they were very upset. So they had that kind of relationship with the rovers. But the rovers are very much, you know, they're just robots. So this new robot is kind of giving those humanizing aspects that humans were already giving them. Does that make sense, kind of? Or...
Yeah, could you give me an example? What would be an example of that kind of more quintessential human type of behavior or relationships or feelings?
So it's mostly things like so like the underdeveloped social interactions, is that what you're
maybe yeah, I'm wondering what you have in mind.
Oh, okay, so I think what I was trying to say with this sentence was that these rovers, they'd be traveling and, you know, they'd kind of camp in a way, or they would have this like very cute aspect to them when they're traveling on Mars. And so humans would naturally kind of, you know, be a bit obsessed with them in that perspective. So I was trying to like say that this current rover is a real life version of that relationship, in which humans were humanizing these rovers and their cute interactions on Mars.
Right. Okay. All right. Cool.
All right. Thank you, Paul. David, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've got quite a bit to say. What year level are you, Elise?
Year level?
Yeah.
First
year?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, because I was gonna say, I actually think out of all the submissions, this submission actually has a level of maturity in terms of interpretation skills that I haven't seen in the other 3 submissions. And that's something that I quite admire. I think I thought you were a second year student, so I was gonna say
No.
Yeah, you have a strong foundation that you can take with you that could, you know, lead you to do really well in future design studios. But there are some things that aren't coming together completely that does stop it from being really great. But this is definitely one of my favorite submissions. And I will talk about kind of why. I think this is an interesting response because we kind of have an issue with the climate crisis here on, you know, our planet right now. And the built environment takes up about 30 to 40% of our embodied carbon, and 15% is transport. So kind of like what Simon was saying before, and Paul, it's kind of interesting to me that it's autonomous, because in a way it's like taking kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back by making the habitation kind of moving in a way, because you're kind of taking away that transportation element, but it's still kind of contributing to that kind of operational carbon energy, because it is moving around. And it's interesting because there was actually a UNSW ArchSoc student that did live in a van. And it kind of made me think about how he kind of went around and lived in that kind of scenario, which did make me think more about the planning tectonics a little bit more. In terms of it being a rover, I don't actually have a problem with it not being a building. I'm kind of the opinion that it's kind of good to separate how we think of architecture as building design. 90% of our kind of built environment is just buildings, but I think 10% is really just architecture, where it's actually saying something about the human experience and it's contributing to people. Can you just scroll down? I think I saw a planning section underneath.
This one?
Yeah, so I'm not completely sure if it's intentional, because of the scale and because you do have this narrative of it being dystopian. But where I start to have a little bit of issues with it is in terms of tectonics. There isn't a lot of porosity in the scheme, which could be intentional, because you are saying it's kind of grim in a way.
Yeah.
I see there's only like this kind of opening from the front of the rover. Is that correct?
An opening?
Yeah, so like you can look outside to like Mars and get sunlight.
Oh, this control room, maybe?
Yeah, the control room. Yeah, so it's quite a dark scheme. I suppose. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure. Like as you said, it could be part of the narrative and it's quite an undesirable element. But it is quite interesting. That being said, I do think there are some missed opportunities, because Mars has different daylighting to Earth. I think much longer days, much longer hours of sunlight. So it does become a bit undesirable to live in these kind of scenarios where it's quite dark, you're in this building and you're kind of just living in this really big moving kind of tank almost, where sunlight's only going to be in the control room. But it does fit with the thematics quite well. I do think it could be, if you scroll down to your section, I think there's a section somewhere, it could be a bit more architectural, even though it is kind of this rover. Some exciting things could be happening with the section, which I can forgive, because it is quite a bold, very brave approach to the project. But yeah, I actually quite admire this one. I do think some of the planning could come together more with how, if you want to make it more undesirable, there's some conflict of interest there. But yeah, I quite like it, and yeah, I'll give it to Helen.
Perfect. Yeah, we got 3 minutes, so I'll comment quickly. I do really love the conceptual aspect of this design, because when I was reading it, and I love how you kind of assigned the robot with bodily functions, with like a brain, lungs, arms, and legs, and how you kind of interacted the robotics aspect with different types of human connecting to them. I think that aspect itself is something that the other participants haven't thought about how to kind of utilize the 10 people that we got and how to assign them to different aspects and areas of your design. So I think that was really interesting to read. And I can see that you did a lot of background research on Mars with the solar axis and stuff. So yeah, I was also surprised at your first year. I thought your second year. I'm really like, did you draw all of these graphics, or how did you produce them? They look amazing.
Illustrator.
Yeah. Did you have to, wow, that's like an extensive amount of work.
But I did model, for example, you can, like this one here, I had to use SketchUp to put the people inside.
Yeah. No, but like the overall graphics and how the storyline comes about is very, very important. I think you definitely have a strong grasp of how to tell the story. And that is often very important in architectural presentation. It's not just about your design, it's about how you communicate your conceptual ideas across. And what I do suggest is that I love how you use diagrams, you use these like texts in different areas to really communicate your conceptual thinking across. So really good job on that. I think definitely one thing to consider for next time is how it actually interacts with gravity, because that was a huge aspect in the design brief, internally as well as externally. And it's really interesting how you put all of these ideas into like a mobile form that kind of moves around on Mars, but maybe think about how they can be connected together. They are quite modular, but is there a way that, you know, they can clip into each other and form bigger spaces? How to build a more sustainable or a more fixed, not fixed, but like a more connected sort of space when they do play together. So yeah, potentially think about those aspects. But I think very strong graphic design, very strong storyline, overall very, very good job on how you communicated your ideas across. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
I think maybe if the wheels are anti-gravitational, they floated, maybe. That's the first thing I thought of. Like something from Transformers or something.
Yeah. Alrighty. I think we can go to our next team. Let me share screen. Okay, we got Penal Colony, but is there anyone from that team that's in the group chat, in the Zoom chat? I think they might have not gotten the message today.
Do we want to pull it up and just talk about it for a little bit?
I think I have the. I don't remember which one it was. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So I might just read out the statement. So it's called Penal Colony. As population on Earth starts to exceed the extent of planet's resources, humanity looks to the stars for respite, ventures into the alien landscapes of our solar system. In the 22nd century, reveal subsurface lakes of potable water under the burnt expanses of Mars horizons. Exploratory efforts to the red planet consists of a group of convicts and their guards to carry out their sentences through establishing a method of habitation. Pulled between multiple gravities, the modules contained within a glass shell include accommodation, admin spaces, and set of hanging gardens inspired by the brutalist cubes of the last century, and the interlocking apartments of, I don't know how to pronounce that, that name. Habitat 67. The modular arise above the horizon, suspended in a beacon. The program hovers impossibly over a subsurface lake with an underground chamber providing collection for both potable water and geothermal energy from the planet. The program serves as both a base and a refuge, a planet for convicts and further humanity through exploring life on the new planet. Encased in double shell of interlocking frames, which provides shade and light up to the interior, the vertical program makes use of alternate interior gravities to maximize use of space. The proposed structure represents a new model of living for the convicts and a chance at a new life, a new home. So basically, let me zoom out. So this is their proposed structure, and you can see in this, I guess this is more of an AXO, that there are residential areas, the main walkway is vertical, so they are using the gravitational aspect of it. There's some paneling, transitional space here. It can be for recreational when sitting. And then there's the storage areas walkway into hanging gardens. So I guess that's the consideration in the food source and how to produce food for the 10 people. And there are residential areas for guards and offices, admin spaces, circulation of extended admin spaces, and then that's kind of your initial entry. And there's an airlock into the building structure, so you kind of like go up to this panel. And then they have underground storage for vehicles and geothermal energy and equipments. And basically, this is their section outlining how the structure works. I guess you enter from this entrance and then you can walk up to the vertical space. I love how they kind of put the people in both the section and plan perspective. So that really makes it clear about how gravity works inside the structure. Let's go down to their renders. So they have their vertical garden where they harvest food. And this, I think this is a transitional space that you can go through. And then they do have the main gathering steps that people can sit on. And then this is the bedroom for the convicts to live. I love how they put the door like on the ground so you can like enter from the ground. I guess this really shows how they played around with gravity and how it maximized the living spaces. Let's go to our panelists. This is not my panel, so I think I've kind of outlined their main ideas. So if you guys have any comments, please go ahead.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame because what I loved about this one, if you scroll up, I love the section because it really engages the brief and gravity in a way, because you can almost look at it and you can't really tell if it's a plan or a section, but in fact it's both. So I really wished there was someone there to explain more of it, because you can kind of see these little moments of very communal areas, but also places to separate in terms of habitation. So it kind of balances that kind of 10 people living condition really well. Mm-hmm. It's very porous. The structure is a bit, triangles when in doubt, but I don't really have much of a problem with that. I can't comment. I'm not the best on structure myself. But yeah, I actually really like this one. I just wish I, had someone to present this, and even the gardening, that little gardening moment where you can walk around and it's like this vertical garden. It's just, yeah.
I don't know, David. I'm a bit disturbed by it.
Really?
Because I see it has like imperialist undertones. I mean, just in the use of the language, you might not have noticed it, but the use of the word convict
right.
is a bit unusual. It's not a modern day term for a someone who needs supervision, in a sort of a penitentiary type manner. It's an old term, and so I wonder why they've used it. What's the intended twist on that? It's a pity they aren't here to explain that. And secondly, the idea of sending convicts to another place, an off-planet or a location, is another echo of an imperialist mentality of shipping your undesired human elements away. So that when I look at the figures themselves, I'm trying to work out what type of convicts would they be. Are they, they're not hardened criminals. They're not don't look terribly hardened to me, but I'm not quite sure about how the imagery evoked through the language of the theme matches the visual signals and representations. So anyway, just some comments from me if you wanted to convey them back.
Mm.
No, I agree with that. All on the same page.
Yeah, in some ways I really like it just to look at it, but it is really bizarre the choices that have been made, because you could have said presented the exact same thing and just not called them convicts. It would have been equally persuasive, but there's these unnecessarily dark moments, and I don't know, I think it's quite compelling, like as a quick sketch of, what you'd hope would be a more realized proposal.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, team Penal Colony, please let us know. But yeah, I think the storyline aside, I quite like how the structure works and how it's very exposed in a way. It's not covered, but I think the main living spaces or the living bedrooms are under the shelter. And then all the transitional spaces are like out in the open. So I think that kind of ties in with the Tadao Endo house, where like inviting the rain into the structure. I think that was quite cool. And also having that section really tells a lot. Love that you guys put the people in both section the plan, so we're able to see how it navigates through the structure. Yeah. I guess the food harvesting aspect of it is shown pretty well using the renders. Probably just tone down your saturation a little bit for future references, so then it's more clear, because sometimes the shadows do kind of overlay how you're conveying the space a little bit. But yeah, with your storyline, I also do question why you kind of want to send particular kind of set them aside and sent them to a new planet. So do think about that a little bit more. But otherwise, all the rest of the structure look pretty good to me.
That communal space is a nice urban gesture. I feel like scroll down to the perspective. I just don't understand what that block is, because it's kind of blocking where that curve is, where it could like be someone, giving like a presentation, or like, because that's the gathering space. It kind of blocks out where that person could stand and everyone can face them and like listen to him give a talk.
Could be the theater space. No.
Yeah.
Undercover. But yeah, perfect. Alrighty. Thank you for that presentation. That was not by me. But let's go ahead.
Thank you to Helen.
Let's go. Ooh, all right. Let's go. Hive Red.
Yep, just one sec. If Owen could just share his screen.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Please give me a minute. I'm not familiar with this software. Yes, can you see?
Yep. Thanks. All right, so this is our architectural concept, I guess. It's called Hive Red. And essentially, we wanted our design to be like the catalyst of Mars colonization, and like sort of like the predecessor to all future civilizations that will occur on Mars. So we wanted to sort of blend futuristic and surrealistic elements with like pure engineering efficiency and functionality. So have a nice balance and something that's obviously suitable for the 2157. Our goals include making sure it's self-sustainable. So, water, food, power, that can all be sort of produced and I guess collected on the site itself. We also wanted to make sure that everything could be 3D printed before the humans were actually landed on Mars, and also that obviously expansion is capable, so that as the number of inhabitants grow, the base itself obviously, you know, grows to like kind of match, I guess, the population. We also wanted to make it as space and resource efficient as possible, whilst also being able to maintain that kind of quality of life. Also, we also wanted to try to like, I guess, invent like a gravity machine and like sort of, you know, redesign how stairs work. So if Eric could just talk about the inspirations now.
We had multiple iterations, but the final one we settled on a sundial design with a sort of theme of scientific exploration sort of thing, and we obviously it's hexagonal, and hence the Hive name. So we went. That was sort of between geometric or a organic sort of shape, and we settled on a geometric design, and it's obviously on a inclined on an incline, which I guess one of the comments we made was it looked like somewhat like a wind flute, and that's at a I think 18-degree angle. Yeah. Some other considerations we had to make when initially making the design were obviously the weather conditions on Mars are very different to Earth, including like the temperature, wind particles, or the dust storms, which involves the air quality and stuff, and also the pressure on Mars. And we wanted to incorporate a design that allowed views onto the Mars landscape, as well as another consideration was just the overall program of the building and how we made all the rooms fit together. And brainstorming, I think, was Jeremy was going to talk a bit more about.
So we obviously took a lot of time to brainstorm our ideas and like decide what, you know, what we wanted and what seemed the most appropriate for Mars. And in terms of the form, we actually were sort of debating on whether we should go for more of an organic shape or something more geometric, I guess. And we did decide, obviously, as you can see, on something more geometric, because we felt that these sharp, sort of like angular lines, you know, really struck out in the setting of Mars. Furthermore, we also originally had like brainstormed this sort of I don't know if you guys know what like an aerofoil shape. So sort of like a sideways teardrop almost. Because that sort of shape is the most, I guess, it's very air resistant, I guess. But then we thought about it, but then, you know, the winds in Mars aren't even that strong. So we thought, you know, it just like wasn't appropriate. We did also think about doing like a planetarium design, having maybe like some sort of like central tree in the middle and then kind of building our rooms around that. And then, you know, so that expansion was very like, I guess, logical and very easy, I guess, natural. We thought about that. We also thought about like in terms of the stairs to make use of the anti-gravity, making like spider webs almost instead of stairs. And yeah, those were some of our ideas, but this is what we've decided on.
So the final design, first of all, I guess the dimensions of everything. We went slightly larger scale for quality of life, and so we figured out the dimensions of that with obviously the incline changing a bit of that as well. But in terms of the incline, we decided that from a lot of what looked aesthetic, but also the capabilities of what a 3D printer can actually print. So if it's too inclined, then it's obviously going to tip over when you're building it. And then also just maximizing space and how we can walk between the six. There's some of the rooms have 6 walls, which you would be able to walk on. So that's one of the reasons why we chose the hexagon as well. And then the materiality we used is a biopolymer. So there's been a lot of other research done on what materials would be good for 3D printing on Mars. And the biopolymer with a basalt fiber uses Martian soil and can is one of the strongest ones that they've so far figured out. And I guess why we chose that over any sort of inflatable or origami things that also engineers have been looking at is that it sort of feels like a more secure walls. You want something that feels more homely rather than something that's like a blow up balloon almost. That's what we wanted anyway. There was also temperature control within the building relating to the materiality. At the base, the plan was to have a air-filled platform which would protect from conduction, but in terms of convection from the wind or anything, since it's such a thin atmosphere, that wasn't really a problem, even though it's very cold outside. And then is that Jeremy? We're going to talk about the elevator.
So first I'll talk about the kitchen. So the kitchen and the bedroom are at the very top of the I guess our building. So the reason for that was the bedroom, obviously, you know, we wanted the bedroom at the highest point so that it receives the most sunlight, I guess, because I know the days in Mars is long and therefore the nights are also long. So we want to ensure that, you know, optimal comfort levels are being, you know, or comfort levels are being maintained and the temperature would be right. Yep, so that's why the bedroom's at the top. The bedrooms are actually, I don't know if you guys can see, the bedrooms on the panel is sort of triangular. So the rooms are essentially triangular prisms. So the top sort of trapezium is for, I guess, the men, and the bottom trapeziums are for the women, I guess. We wanted to divide that. So they're essentially triangular prisms. The reason for that was to make sure we were able to maximize space efficiency. So you can kind of walk on the walls and reach your bedroom, and the doors would be, I guess, sort of like curtains. And it also sort of looks like a tent. And I guess that sort of gives a homely atmosphere. In terms of the kitchen, the kitchen is sort of like a cafeteria. The foods that we would be eating would be all produced via plantation and plantation, and also insects. Foods like crickets have a lot of protein and I guess sustainable in the long term. And in case of emergencies, there will also be compressed foods inside the storage room. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And now if Owen wants to talk about the rovers.
Yes, so for the rover design, we have when we are thinking about what kind of rover they are going to use to traveling on the Mars, we have discussed about several ideas. Maybe just an ordinary rover with wheels. Maybe we can come up with something interesting. And so initially we are thinking to create something which have organic shape with more curves. So the rover that we come up, we have to take references with the actual living animal camera in on Earth, because the Mars atmosphere really looks, and the environment really is really similar to the desert on Earth. So we think about taking that as an idea to design. It may inspire us in some something. The picture on the panel is a little bit too small, so it doesn't show a lot of detail. But when we are originally designing it, we have set different sections for this camera looking rover with different functions. For example, we actually have a moving lab inside, help those scientists can do a research quickly when they have find out something interesting outside. They don't need to bring it back. They can bring it back for further studies, but they can just do some simple research on this lab to see, okay, what is this substances, what is this substance, what is this materials, what is its properties. And also we have a storage at the back of the rover. It is so in this storage space, it's mostly with emergency food, compressed food, water, and other stuff. So because I'm originally planning that this camera transport can traveling on Mars for a long period outside. So even though they have faced some kind of emergency condition, very bad conditions, they can still have the they can still have the chance to survive and to be rescued by the people who's living in the base. And yeah, so the rover, its maximum capacity of transporting people is five people at once. And so there will be going to be they're going to be someone who's driving it, and others, they can just stay in the area and then enjoy the view outside the through the window outside. And for the rover pod, so at first we were thinking about to design something looks like a tent, but when we come up with the hexagon design, the hive looking design, so I was thinking to take the area underneath the central room. It's going to be very well because it can prevent from the sandstorm attacking, and it can actually well, I think it's a good place to set up the rover pod. And this is the pic. This is and that's actually all about the rover. And I guess so. I guess that's it for me. So let's give Jeremy his mic back.
Oh, yeah, I'll talk about a bit more about the just the 3 more rooms. There's the,
Do you guys have more to present?
time's up.
You want to wrap up? Finish saying your last sentence. Give us a quick sum up.
Maybe I will do it.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very simple that when we are initially designing this, we think about a lot of different ways. So at first we think about something organic, and then we think about efficiency, the maximum use of space. But the best thing of the design idea is that we take the reference as the hive and the pan flute in real life. So it is compressed, and it also have a organic looking because it looks like the hive in the real life. So it gives us the feeling of the animal, the beast at the same time. So what we are trying to do is trying to play with the gravity and trying to maximize the use of the space, but at the same time we're still trying to develop the ideas of how to make it interesting, how to make it organic, how to make the astronauts and the scientists live on Mars to feel like a home, like they're living on Mars.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that's the idea.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Team
Yeah.
Hive Red. All right, so we'll pass on to our panelists. Let's go. Does anyone want to go first?
I'm happy to start us off then. Yeah, I just didn't see the bottom images. They've only just popped up on my screen when you shared screen. You didn't reach that far down on the screen, so that's good to see. It's visually quite a evocative sort of set of ideas. And what interests me about this, and it's my own sort of reading, is the angle and the fact that it's like a funnel, these tubes that stretch up and like they're hives, and like cones, sort of are directed upward, which is really interesting, because it plays with the dualism. The structure seems to be very well environmentally attuned, but however, there's an orientation towards off the planet. And I think there's a psychology to this that may not have been actually part of the thinking. But if you're living on Mars, so far away from planet Earth, I think it would be very important to actually have a visual reference to the stars and back to Earth. So you could be living in this hostile world and trying to survive on it. But psychologically, I think to have that reference point back to where you came from, back to Earth, whatever is happening on Earth, you know, we might be pretty much living in ruins, or you know, who knows what life would be like on Earth in 100 or 150 years time. But this is one of the things that struck me about the scheme when I first saw it, is the dualism at play, the attuning to local conditions and in the choice of materials and angles and connection to the surface, but at the same time, this orientation up and to the galaxy and the stars. So I'd like to know if that was at all part of the thinking, this dualism of being grounded and connecting to the environment, but also with a reference point back.
I don't think we quite got that fully thought out with it, but we did. If I could share the screen for a second, Alvin, I'll show the.
Yes. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. So can you see that? That's.
Oh yes. Okay.
Here's the model, I think. So the research lab is this central section here. So with part of that was the large window that looked out up into the sky. Right. So that was one of our ideas there, is one, you have the view of the central room, which is very centered and also normally orientated. Otherwise you feel sort of odd if your central room is an obscure angle. So that's looking out along the landscape, and then you've got the research, which looks up into the sky.
Right, okay.
Sort of
yeah, so there is, but yeah, there is, the psychology wasn't such a big consideration for you, it seems. It's more a functional aspect, or a, you know, programmatic one, rather than something to do with the need to remember or
yeah,
connect. Right, okay.
Yeah, can I talk a little bit? Because so we are taking the function as the priority, but at the same time, the reason that why we are discussing, I guess it's something that we don't realize, but we are doing it. Something at first we're just discussing about organic and geometric shape, what it would be look like. The idea is that to make something different, but at the same time, we don't want something on Mars looks like a science lab. We try to make it looks more like somewhere you wish to live it. It's like a house on Earth. When you see the house, you know you want to live it. This is what we're trying to make it look. So we don't really think about that much. We just try to create an atmosphere for it.
All right, perfect. Anyone else want to comment, jump in? Simon and David?
Simon, do you want to go first? Or?
I wouldn't mind going at the end. I quite like listening to what everyone has to say before.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, David.
No worries. What year level are you guys in? I recognize Jeremy, I think.
Sorry?
What year level?
Yeah, we're all year one.
Oh,
Yeah,
year
we're all
one?
first year, yeah.
Oh, same university?
Yep.
Yeah.
UNSW, right, okay. I can really appreciate level 4 elements this one. When I was looking at the panels, I wasn't quite convinced, but listening to you guys present, I admire it a lot more. You guys are really good at explaining the what and the why behind your design thinking, which is a really important skill in design studio that will, bring you really far. I had a hard time reading this game because there wasn't a plan, but at the same time, I could kind of see why. I really liked the level 4 that, when you were explaining perspectives, like you even had things such as storage thought about, even like the tiniest details with the form, like the trapeziums and how that can relate to habitation. I was really pleased to see that. There was a lot of depth of thinking. It's interesting because the hexagon, I wasn't sure of it at first, but I can, I understand why after you explained it. Normally, I don't think hexagons would work as well in your design projects going forward. But for here, it works fair enough. If you haven't already, as first year students, I would 100% go read Francis D.K. Cheng's Form, Space, and Order, where he talks about the different kind of how you can spatially organize your form. It's interesting because I'm doing grad studio at the moment, and at the start of the term when we made all these sketch models and we placed the massing into our site, we kind of looked at the different kind of forms that work. And the reason why hexagons don't work as well is that normally that you come up with a hexagon, but then you have to force the planning inside that form. And that becomes really hard to organize where you put stuff in your program inside the hexagon. So that's why you don't normally see a lot of hexagon shaped buildings. But over here, it's kind of got these interesting opportunities that kind of angled over this kind of interesting compression and expansion in the section. What's good about the hexagon, if you do decide to do it and you understand why it works really well, is that it's almost like this cell clustered kind of shape that you can have these interstitial spaces, which you guys are kind of alluding to, that, hexagons all built together. Yeah, I would definitely pick up that book and read it. I do know the next studio that you guys are doing at UNSW is quite difficult because you have 3 different typologies that you're trying to marry together. And if you start out with a hexagon, it's very hard to further develop that architecturally. And I believe UCID has a similar studio in second Studio 2A, where you have these 2 different kind of programs and you're kind of trying to marry them together. So that's just something to think about. But I really appreciate the level of thinking. I think maybe some work into the how. So maybe I do think you did present the best drawings that you possibly could have for this game. I love how it's storyboarded. But I guess maybe some resolution, how it all comes together, like perspectives, because I don't really know where everything is, where exactly the bedroom is. I would have to probably ask you guys more about that. But yeah, that's it from me.
Alrighty, thank you, David. I'll probably go first if Simon wants to go last. he can go last and sum up all our points. I guess from a more studio perspective, my comments might be, I after hearing your presentation, it definitely adds a lot more. So then I can see that you guys went extensive research into the different like 3D printing, and also how to like recycle water, how to, I think you guys talked about biopolymer aspect from Mars. That was like really interesting to hear about. And I do really like how you guys considered so many aspects and breached it together to form your design thinking. That in itself, coming from a first year, is very, very well done. But I guess my comments would be, in terms of presentation, I kind of learned from one of my professors on how to, you really need a storyline. So what's that one thing that you want to tell everybody? So put that at first. I think it was Eric, when you guys were concluding, wrapping up your presentation, you said something about the whole idea was that you wanted the form to become more of like a house on Mars, and that's how you generated the forms of like the bit at the front, like the gable roof and the hive and everything. And that kind of just like clicked everything together for me. I suddenly like understood, oh, why you guys use hexagon, why there's like a house looking gable roof structure at the front. So I think if that's something that you want to get across to everyone, make sure that your whole story in terms of your panel presentation revolves around this one central idea that you present across to the panel. Because a lot of times when you have all of these different aspects that you go into detail, it's very hard to address them thoroughly. So you just need a chain to like chain them together. And that will make your presentation really strong for the next time. That'll probably be my comments. And in terms of like the drawings and the sections, like really well done for a first year, because I know when I was a first year, I didn't know what I was doing. So really well done on that aspect. And I love how you considered how hexagons, they kind of like work together, how the lifts will bring up why, because when I was looking at your panel, I was questioning why it was like slanted. And it was really nice to hear you guys and like the different wind situations and how you considered the different climates on Mars and how it's different to Earth. So yeah, overall very well done. But in terms of the presentation and how it communicates visually, I think maybe that's something that you can consider into your second half of first year and then into your second year. Really just like strengthening up those graphic communications so that people will understand what you're talking about, not just by hearing your presentation, but actually by looking at your panel as well. Cool. Simon, do you want to go last?
Yeah, that was so interesting, wasn't it? That it wasn't until I think Paul asked some questions as well that I started to figure out exactly what this proposal was about and like why it looks so ambiguous. Like whether it's kind of like it's so bizarre that there's like a barn out the front, like just a regular rural piece of architecture. It's kind of crazy until it's like, yeah, but we're trying to evoke something. We're trying to evoke something quite particular there. Paul, you're about to say something. Yeah, that's why I paused there.
No, not at all, Simon. Keep going. I'm just looking at your background, trying to decipher what that's all about.
And then because it was the idea of the hexagon where you could walk on all of the insides makes sense as a kind of a form. Though I wish I'd seen some more people inside these things to give us a sense of scale. Because if people are walking on the floors of a hexagon, they may be like banging their heads together in the middle, you know. So I just want to check the scale of all of that, as opposed to walking inside of a triangle, which it just seems like you're gonna. Do you bang your head on the ceiling, or does the ceiling which you can walk on like throw your head out of the way? Because how does that work exactly? I don't know. Does your head get like thrown towards the wall? So it's really dangerous to have a triangular room where you can walk on each of the floors. Do you know what I mean?
So the actual hexagon, the what do you call it? I guess the diameter. So from one end to the other is 7 meters.
Mm.
So it's too tall, I guess, to bang your head.
Yeah, the hexagon sounds good. Yeah, definitely. But then, like you were talking about that as if it's about bees and hives and things, and Well, when I was listening to the presentation at the beginning, I wasn't sure why you were doing that. Like, why evoke something from a different planet when, you know, you could just talk about it being basalt, and, you know, is there any basalt on Mars, and like it's a natural geological formation and the angles come out of that. There's lots of ways of explaining all of these things, and I suspect one of the reasons you didn't come out and say it at the beginning is that you were trying to evoke a little bit of ambiguity in the way these things are interpreted. I think that was kind of interesting too. I just think want to see more pictures. And though also, I guess, while I was looking at it, I was going to say I quite like the big image on the first page with the sky and the building and its real kind of simple colors and things. But then it wasn't until I saw the 3D model I could actually understand what shape this building was, or how that stuff fits together. And I like the building more having seen the Rhino model than so I think you could have given a bit more to us, and we would have been happy to have seen some of that. Yeah, interesting project. Thanks for that.
Alrighty, coolio. Thank you, Team Hive Red. And we will progress to our last team, Marsort. Does somebody want to take it away? Alan's ready. There you go.
Yeah, it's Marsort. Like Mars and Zort, as in resort and Mars. Do you want to share screen, Alan? So the aim of our project Marsort was to redefine the limitations of interplanetary living. So we tried to create an ideal living experience that one would wish to have after traveling for an extended period of time, which was on the spaceship, hence grounding our project in the concept of a resort. So we aim to subvert the expectations of this extreme and efficiency-oriented housing that you would typically expect on Mars. So, and even as a stark contrast to like the claustrophobic and packed feeling that you retain from the spaceship. And to reinforce the idea of this artificial biosphere ecosystem, which was to like recycle the air, provide the food, and clean the water, we thought that the most appropriate circulation would be to have one that flows together and connects together. So you don't have this feeling of being segregated on Mars. So this led us to create a central meeting place in the middle, which incorporates a greenhouse and a spherical pool with a glass thing so you can like see the greenhouse from the pool. And this extends to 3 private accommodation suites for individual families. And a stem leaf design would evenly distribute accessibility from each housing to the public space to ensure that privacy is not compromised, also that everything still flows together, and to create a sense of community. Alan will talk a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, so the flowing ellipse form inhabiting areas both above and underground. So this is the above and this is the underground. Draws inspiration from the natural craters on Mars. So the smoothly fused regolith or concrete facade also responds to the pressurized environment inside the building, as opposed to corners and sharp edges, which are structural weaknesses. The lack of gravity provides an opportunity to suspend realism, as gravity machines on both planes eradicate height and design limitations inside the building with a curved facade. Individuals gradually transition from the ground plane to the vertical one through the tilted platforms that branch out into segmented pods. So the segmented pods are like here. Okay. Yeah, so we try to have 3 pods with the central space, which is like a public space. So each pod is going to accommodate around 3 to 4 inhabitants. So in that case, it's like a small unit like space where people from like 3 households can like live together without overpopulating in like one individual space. So we thought about the privacy aspect, how like usually the size of a typical family is around 3 to 4 people, and if we have 10 individuals living under one building, it's going to negatively affect the privacy aspect. So we plan to divide this into 3 units. So each household occupies one pod, while the central space has a greenhouse as well as a spherical pool with a glass transparent ceiling that's able to see through to the greenhouse, and also like above the greenhouse it's also glass. So just to talk a bit about this spherical pool, so we utilize the gravitational machine, which can generate centripetal force, the same force that's like exerting gravity on all of us on Earth right now. So it's like a whole sphere kind of gravitational machine. So people can swim in 360 degrees. So instead of having an infinity pool on Earth, we're having an infinity pool with a little tweak. Yep. And on the sides, there's some tables with the possibilities of like just some leisure space. So we're aiming to have this unique experience where the people sitting at the tables talking to each other, on top of their heads, it's like a swimming pool like that. So this is the public space. So talking a bit about the pod. So this is an individual unit, which I have mentioned previously, that houses 3 to 4 people. So below the surface, there is a garage. So the garage door is like here, where the spaceship. So we try to think about the like in the year 2057, like we're able to commercialize spaceship into like how we're having cars right now, accessible to each single household. And then we also have the above 2 stairs for main inhabitants. So the stairs that is used to travel to commute between the levels are shown here. So again, we utilize the gravitational machine, where people can just walk down casually like this from the garage and all the way to the top level of the building. And yeah, so this is also like the bed we designed for a unique way of sleeping on Mars. And there's a gravitational machine attached to this particular surface. Yeah, that's it.
So to add on to the gravitational machines, if you scroll to the right 3 renders, it's not only on the central vertical plane, but it's across the whole wall as well. So that's why we're able to have not only like a vertical pool as well, but also individuals can actually scale the ceiling, and that leaves a huge uncluttered space for them to exercise, interact with each other, which kind of resembles this like a feeling that's not like cluttered and claustrophobic. Also, the stairs that Alan mentioned are also like storage pods because of the gravitational machines. you can have both sides of the surface utilized efficiently. That means you can like sleep there. And Mars gravity is also 1/3 of Earth's. So that means you can jump from one plane to another, whether that's the vertical to the horizontal or from one level to the other. So they're not really stairs, but more so like storage planes and just a way for individuals to like travel across the pod. So it's like a free flowing form, as opposed to like the rectangle and box-like buildings we usually see, which waste space on the vertical plane and the ceiling. Should we talk about the greenhouse and the water system?
Okay, yep, so definitely. So the source of water for this whole building is the water machine. So after some research, the atmosphere of Mars, it's around, so there is the presence of water vapor inside the Martian atmosphere, although the atmosphere of Mars is very thin, almost non-existent. So we're trying to extract the water vapor out of the atmosphere of Mars using this water machine, where it goes into this chamber and it's able to meet like a condenser where the temperature rapidly drops back to like a melting level, not melting level, sorry, into like condensed liquid form, where the water can be stored and then filtered for drinking and also other uses. And then that's it. That's the source of water. I also would like to talk a bit about the way of living inside this building, as many of the judges might question that like the layout of the way of living here, it's quite conventional, pretty similar to what you would experience on Earth, where most of the things are on one surface with gravity acting vertically. So the reason why we're trying to minimize the use of gravity, especially in places of living, is because we considered about the way human body is programmed after tens of thousands of years of evolution, that our body is most suitable for living in a way that we have gravity acting vertically upon us. That's why we're trying to preserve the traditional gravitational experience, at least for the common living areas. And then other than that, we also use the gravitational machine creatively, especially at the swimming pool and also the stairs, how you travel from one level to another. Yeah, so that's all I want to say. Helena, do you have anything you want to add on?
How much time do we have?
Like 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the gravitational machine is just to enhance the Earth-like experience, but to make it much easier to live on Mars. For example, like you can scale the walls, and like traveling is so much quicker, as well as freeing up space by using both sides of the surface. And yeah, I think overall, we wanted to not really mimic the Earth-like resort experience, but elevate it in a level that's more suitable for Mars, while considering all the environmental aspects, such as how like the sunlight is only 43% of Earth's. That's why we positioned a skylight above and positioned the plane to 45 degrees so that you can take advantage of the skylight while using LED lights for the rest of the levels, so that you get like this light feeling and not a lot of darkness on Mars. So that's what we tried to do. And We also considered how the atmosphere is like 95% carbon dioxide with only 0.2% oxygen. So that's why I wanted to create this enclosed ecosystem. And it might look like a fidget spinner, but the shapes just draw inspiration from Mars craters. And we have both practical and conceptual reasons behind that, which is like not only to resemble natural craters, but also so that the smoothly fused facade responds to the pressurized environment on Mars, which creates not only comfortable, but also practical living experience.
Cool, amazing. Thank you for the presentation. Let's start with our panelists. Simon, do you want to go first?
I love this one. It's really good to have heard so much thorough thinking through of some of the infrastructural aspects to a project like this, because it's something that I've been growing in awareness of that in the particularly because of Paul's comments, I think, about the previous project about the local conditions and gazing at the stars. There's always that sense here that, buildings like this are going to need to be really connected to some kind of infrastructure, and then that infrastructure itself might give a sense of like the distant home. And so there's but infrastructure is often directly what we rely on, but when we think about a project like this, they do seem to be like fundamentally colonies of a kind, by which we mean not necessarily like a military invasion kind of colony, but a habitation that is relying on supplies from a distant location. Like everything that is here, it seems, has been brought from a distant location, even if not all the atoms and molecules, certainly the knowledge to assemble them in certain patterns. So, we're drawing kind of some human perceptions into these. So to see this project as a resort, it looks like genuinely like a nice resort. I'd like to see it on Earth as much as on some other planet. If you just port this somewhere else aside from some of the futuristic elements, that'd be really nice. This is one of my favorite ones. I guess there's one thing that did strike me a couple of times, make me a bit uncomfortable, is this idea that like I guess it's this the consequences of the anti-gravity machine in this hexagonal tubes and things. And some of the earlier projects, I imagine that you're separated from the outside world so that you don't accidentally use your eyes looking at the landscape to guess where gravity is. And so these like tubes cut off from the outside world, which I thought was quite helpful. But here I can just imagine trying to lie down comfortably on this bed, seeing the horizon going in one direction, but gravity pulling me in another direction, and maybe just not being able to sleep. Or like that's something I'm wrestling with. Maybe that's super cool. I don't know, but that's a real thing there.
All right, thank you, Simon. Paul, do you want to go?
Sure. I've got a question firstly before my main comments. In the section there, the section tells us that there's the pod that then has this galleyway or this walkway that extends to a glass house and a swimming hydro thing. Where is that in the render, this central underground vegetation / swimming sort of center? Because I can't see it in the render. It's an elevated connection point that doesn't seem to connect to the ground plane.
Yeah, so the reason we showed the central meeting place only in this section is because in the render, it would be more clear if it was just like a section. But we only showed the render for the individual pods. So it's to give an idea of how the
I'm afraid that that's a bit of a drawback, because you've got this other part to the building that isn't shown in the render, but that would actually change the look of it quite dramatically, because it dips down. It actually goes from being this set of 3 connected pods, you know, hermetically sealed pods, to something that is a bit more grounded and directed downward, if you understand what I mean. So there's a disconnect there that I think is not easy to understand in terms of how it would change the look of the way the thing sits. Do you see my point?
Yeah, we do. But we think it's also like it follows the aesthetic of the render pod that we did show. Like because of the gravitational forces, I think the dip would be significantly less like extreme. It would just be a gradual transition down.
Okay. So which pod has the depth?
The depth.
Which one has the whirlpool, swimming whirlpool in it?
Oh, so
it's the center. It's the central part, which is the public area. It's not like at one of the.
So right, I'm not misreading it. It's just not there. That's all. Okay.
Yeah. It's
all right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sure. Okay. And my comment would be is you're conceiving this as a resort type of place where people would go to be in a resort type of environment and enjoy the luxury of a resort. And therefore, how are they going to, what's different about being on Mars then for the resort?
We're not exactly commercializing the Mars experience like Elon Musk is planning to, but it's just more transforming the typical extreme and efficiency-oriented experience on Mars into a more comfortable and Earth-like one that somehow like resembles a resort a bit more.
So is it the sensation of being in a anti-gravitational environment and floating around and because I just don't see the connection to the planet itself. It's minimized. It's not a something as an experience you're pretty much all cut away from, or you're protected from it. So I'm just wondering, in terms of going there and being on a resort like place, what's relationship you have with the place itself?
So for this one, like I have said before, so let's assume like the spaceships are widely used at that time. So like traveling from Earth to Mars, it's like traveling from one country to another. But like on top of that, instead of just traveling to a country on Earth, you have experiences. You have visual experiences with the Martian landscape, which is perfect. Which is like widely exploited via the facade here. We're trying to preserve as much of the Martian landscape that's accessible within the structure as well. And also, on top of that, like in the public space, I have mentioned this spherical pool. I think like using the gravitational machine, without it, it wouldn't be possible to make a spherical swimming pool, right? So like the interaction between the tourists, for example, households from 3 pods. Like there it's like a space where where they can interact with each other in a way that they could never have on Earth. Yeah, I
Okay.
hope you understand what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty, David, do you want to go ahead?
Do you want to go first or?
Oh, I can go first. You can go last. Yeah, overall I like the scheme, and I liked how you guys presented your panel as well. It's very appealing to look at. But I also do agree with both Simon and Paul in the aspect of how have you considered the site itself, and how have you kind of utilized gravity in a way that fits with the brief and also where you have designed. One thing that I found really interesting in this scheme is the spherical pool. I really want to go there and see what it's going to feel like to swim in a sphere. And perhaps that's something that you guys could have explored a little bit further, not just in a feature in the building, but maybe extend it out if you can to the whole building. It's very clever how you guys used the gravity machine in terms of how it plays with water, but could there be ways that you can extend that little idea out so that the whole building kind of revolves around this center, or how people move around? That would be very cool. That's something that I thought about when you guys were presenting. I guess one of my question is there a reason that you guys made the interior very almost like clinical? I like the aspect of it, but I just want to know if there's any particular reason behind that. It's very clean.
I would say it's not as clinical, but more of a clean and high-tech sci-fi environment. I think hotels tend to be either like more luxurious, or they tend to be quite simple and minimalistic. So you have like the simple luxury as well.
Yeah.
Combined with technology.
Yeah. But yeah, I do agree with Simon on how when you look at the gravity itself, when you're lying on those 45-degree slanted platforms, like the type of view that you might have, and this is to everyone as well, like when you do utilize gravity in a slightly different way, what would you see? Like the things that you see would be totally different to how we see it. So are there ways to use that aspect into your design and see how it interacts with the exterior as well as the interior? So that's like a general comment for everyone. But overall, I do like the section and how you guys presented it. So that will be my comment. We'll move to David.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with everyone. So I'm kind of just gonna expand on what everyone's been saying. With what Paul kind of said, I think you guys are really strong at explaining the what, why, how. You guys are second-year students, if I could guess.
First year.
First as well. Okay, yeah, a very strong explanation of the what, why, how. I do know when I first looked at this panel, I looked at the section and I got really confused. I think one thing that I would do to kind of improve your presentation for the next time is kind of explain how it's kind of spatially organized. Because what I kind of see right now is this central kind of pool meeting place, like you said, and then 3 different spokes, which lead to your kind of little resort for each kind of island, like the fidget spinner, like you said. But no, not fidget spinner. But yeah, I guess that kind of leads to some different implications. So would the resort be different in each of those different spokes? Because that would mean, you know, kind of almost this different condition that you're fitting into Mars. The water is really nice. So I think one architect that you could kind of do further studies on, if you want to do something similar to this. The scheme kind of reminded me of something from like Stephen Hall. So if you want to read Questions of Perception, he talks about from phenomenology. It kind of reminds me of the way that the water is in this kind of weird gravitational kind of center, how the water is like there's like this sunken element in the steam the whole building, right? The water aligns to the axes as you like kind of move down. It's really cool. And the water kind of like echoes into the interior spaces. I think that's what I'm kind of seeing in perspectives. That'll be really cool. Back to the section, there are some really nice, you know, moments of scale. So the lower roof in the bathroom, and then you've got like this kind of more typical ceiling height. I do think the section and the spokes are a little bit more of a like sandwich, but they do get quite interesting, irregardless of that. I am quite confused on whether or not the skin. So I can see you've put glass aside, fixed by titanium frames. So is that porous? Can you see through it? Because it looks like glass in one of the renders perspectives, but then it's like fully enclosed in like some of the other perspectives.
Yeah, it's definitely fully enclosed.
Okay.
So we have we didn't try to like we basically what we did was like we tried to prevent any like open space. Like we were trying to like seal up the whole thing, because like at the end of the day, like on Mars, like the outdoors environment, it's not ideal in terms of respiration wise, and also the outdoor temperature. So we're trying to insulate the space, but at the same time, we're taking an approach that minimizes the obstruction that is created by like insulation. So we're trying to make it as transparent as possible. And we did some research on for example, the way they use it in NASA space explorations, and also the International Space Station, when like in their windows they use the similar kind of material, so this fused silica glass fixed by titanium frames. So we're trying to like mimic the structural approach to that as well. It's just from some research we did.
Okay, but those are openings next to solar panels that can kind of beam light in. Yeah, okay. The beds are quite interesting, because I was thinking like with what Simon said, because if you were sleeping in the beds, then you would see the horizon, but you can't actually see the horizon when you sleep in those beds, can you?
It's more like seeing the sky.
The sky, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of one of those like little park rides, so you know, where you stand on almost like the statue of Fugue. So you're like stuck to the wall. I'm kind of thinking it's like sleeping on a wall like that. It's very interesting. But I think
yes.
I think that's like about like all I've got to say.
Okay.
Well done. I think it's definitely like, in terms of like a visual presentations, the best communications, best graphical style of the competition.
Yes. And also like I think you asked a question about like whether this glassy looking facade, does it translate to like the actual building? Or did you ask that question?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, so we're trying to be creative about the materiality that is accessible in like the year of 2057, where like so when you're sleeping, or like when it's like very bright in the day, like you can have this interior which is quite similar looking like the photos here. So it looks kind of like just like a material that is not transparent at all, but you also have the option to do some manipulation with the material. Like maybe this material can be programmed in a way that can switch on and off its transparency, if you know what I mean. Like it's like, instead of having a like the slides in the windows, like the window slide, we can incorporate that feature into the glass material such that we can electronically program it to act like a wall or like a glass wall. So it can give different textures.
Are you saying like those Japanese toilets that switch on the opacity automatically when people?
Yeah, the opacity. That's what I mean. Yeah, similar to it. Yep.
Alrighty, cool. Thank you all for your presentation. That was very, very lovely to hear. All of you did immense work and a lot of research into how to build it on Mars. So definitely really nice to hear everyone's take, and they're all very different projects. So we might just go into a breakout room to decide the winners. Could everyone remain in this room, please?
Lily, if you want to play like elevator music or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. All right. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, guys, after an intense discussion with our panelists, we have arrived at our winners. We are going to go from the last one to the first one. So, drum roll. Okay, so the fourth place will be Penal Colony, because first of all, they weren't here to present. So we kind of did miss one aspect of it. And that's kind of the main crucial reason. It's really nice to hear from all of you, like why you thought about, like how you took the brief and how you went in your conceptual journey to arrive at your design. And that is why we made our decision to make Penal Colony the last one for today. All right. And then for the third one, David, do you want to announce that one?
Yeah, drum roll. This is very difficult, but in third place, and this is one of my favorite ones, unfortunately, but in third place is Destiny. I think this is a very strong scheme, and I still stand by that this has the best interpretation from a student, best skills from a first-year student. I just think it just falls short of coming first or second because of the gravity element, unfortunately. But I think you should be really proud of yourself. This is like very good. You have very potential to just kill it in second and third year.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very strong graphical skills. I was amazed as well. Alrighty, so our second place, drum roll, guys. Our second place goes to Marsort. So the reason why, and obviously you get the first place, is Hive Red. The reason why that Hive Red kind of was boosted up was because of the little aspects they were considering in their design. They really considered the climate, considered how to build the structure, and their presentation, when they go into all of those little details, it really pulled it together. So congratulations to Hive Red. Does anyone want to add on to what I have said just then?
Yeah, and I guess in terms of just as a piece of architecture, a lot of intent. I think that's quite mature. So you have these hexagon shapes, but you've also like kind of, angled it out, split them up. The trapeziums are like, how you decide to have beds. I think that's very mature stuff for first year. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and for Marsort, love you guys' presentation. Loved how clean your panel were, like your graphical choice. That was really pleasing to look at, and it's very professional, like Nathan said in our breakout room. Yeah, it was very nicely presented. Love the concept as well. I think the only reason that it fell short a little bit for us was just the level of detail. And yeah, so congratulations to everyone.
And we also have People's Choice. So
and we have the People's Choice. Okay, hold on. Let me share screen.
I wouldn't mind reiterating that point to all the contestants. The three of you that presented today, like each of you could have won. You were real contenders. Like there's not a huge amount between it. Like it was excellent work from everybody.
Yeah, that was why we took 12 minutes to decide. It was very tight between all of you.
Exactly. So the People's Choice Award. So did they vote while we were away?
So it opened last week and we opened it up on Facebook so people were able to vote. And I'm going to share screen now. We have the results. Drum roll, guys. Congratulations to Marsort.
Whoa.
You guys won by a mile. Congratulations, guys.
Not including the people who tried to vote more than once.
Yeah, there were some people who tried to vote more. We discounted all that. So congratulations, guys. Very, very nice panel. Let's see. Okay, cool. So for all of you guys, stay tuned to our email. We will email you the relevant information. So for winner, you do get the cash prize plus first pick at the prize pool. So we will email you all of the selections that we have in terms of prizes. And we would also publish your work on our social medias across the 3 societies. Does anyone have anything else before I close it?
Just from me, thank you for inviting me. I've very much enjoyed the afternoon and listening to the presentations and the sort of creative ideas that have gone into your work. So thanks once again for having me.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, it makes me obliged to say thanks for having me as well. What a fun afternoon to see these projects. This is great. Well done, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to spend my afternoon with you.
Yeah. Thank you to our juries, Paul, Simon. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you to Nathan, Helen. It's competition as well, and thank you for the submissions. Yeah, it's a lot of great work. That was fun.
We wouldn't have a competition without you guys.
Yeah.
So.
Hope you learned something as well. If you had any questions as well about your scheme and wanted like further direction, more like develop for where you want to go as students, I'm happy to answer that in emails as well. Any books. Yeah.
Feel free to reach us through social media. You know who we are. So just text us anytime and we're happy to help. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for our panelists for spending your time with us. It was quite an amazing journey to like hear all of your thoughts, and especially David, Nathan, for organizing this. And thank you guys for submitting. It was very amazing to see all of your panels, and we know how much work you put in this holidays. All right. Thank you, guys. Have an amazing night. And for the winners, we would email you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.